Oh, yeah. What's up, everybody?
Oh boy, how you guys doing today? It's a hot one.
Hot as heck outside. How we doing, fam? Welcome back. It's Meaning Making 101 here on Actuali Podcast. This is our weekly live stream series that we perform every Wednesday, 7 p. EST, as we are available. Of course, we do have lives, but we love doing this thing on the side and growing with all of you. That's the invitation here. We want you guys to join us and converse with us, and we can figure this thing out together, because we certainly are in a time of meaning crisis. There's so much growing, rampant division, polarization around our world. And what can we do to help be that change we wish to seek? How can we change this world from the inside out? That's the name of the game here, fam. So thank you so much for tuning in. Where's my mic going? It's just got a mind of its own.
Yet again, whenever we leave for extended periods of time, the gremlins just have at all the equipment.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, we got the AC rocking today because it's like 100+ degrees outside, so don't mind that. Hopefully that doesn't bleed through the mics. We got our noise gate functioning
this is
properly.
a little bit of, behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes, behind the curtain.
Behind our wonderful curtain is actually hiding a air conditioner.
Biggest fan right there.
Yeah, I'm the biggest fan of our biggest
He's
fan
the
at the
coolest
moment.
fan too, man.
Oh, man. Oof.
Yeah, it's hot. It's got to be extra hot when you got that much hair, man.
Believe it or not, being
I
fuzzy
need to
like
cut
this,
my hair. I'm too long right now for my comfort.
Well, because it's still short, but when it gets long like this, it keeps the sun off of you, and then it helps evaporate the moisture off, so it keeps you a little bit cooler than what you'd think. It's kind of like, why desert people wear turbans.
Oh yeah, and long sleeve shirts and things like that.
It's similar effect. Now, mind you, it's stuffy, but when it gets like super duper hot, well, it was like 65% humidity today. Yeah. Where I was at, so yeah, good luck. It doesn't matter how much you can evaporate off you; it's still
like
hot.
Swimming out
brutal.
there. Yeah. It's like a giant outdoor sauna. Feels like you just walked out.
It's good though. Haven't had that like, oh dear God, I got to stay out of the heat in a while. Like, haven't felt that in a while. So
yeah, I kind of acclimate to the heat pretty well. I mean, it's, of course, you notice it once you start getting. Once you start running out of water, and you start really feeling it. But generally, I don't know why I can acclimate to the temperature changes pretty well. Probably has something to do with growing up in Florida, man.
Yeah,
Speaking of hot and humid.
Yeah, we're Florida. Well, we used to be Florida in the summer and Minnesota in the winter.
Right.
And it's about to come back now, once the sun goes through the cycle, which the sun has been acting crazy. They're like, it actually. So the holes in the corona were getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it went from almost all like completely north to south, and then it made this like meme face where it's just like, huh? Like over top of it, I was just like, okay.
Oh no.
And then like 5 days later, all of this just happened. Or maybe a week later. Yeah. So don't underestimate the sun. Climate change comes from the sun.
Yeah,
mostly.
We don't know how much of it is anthropogenic or human caused.
But I can guarantee
we certainly know
sun,
a lot of pollution is caused, especially by major industrial corporations.
The sun trumps all human endeavors by a long shot. If it burps the wrong way, we're gone. Yeah. So pay attention to that sun.
300 million plus years of a very, very hot, moist, wet planet with the dinosaurs, and then of course we've gone through ice ages as well, significant periods of mostly frozen planets. So it's it definitely goes through its changes.
We're lucky to be going from a very, very, very hot period in Earth's history, on the up cycle, and now we're going down into the ice age cycle. No, we'll never see it. Our ancestors will probably never see the true
We're overdue
cycle.
For that, though, aren't we? For that next ice age. So they say.
Well, we're heading into it, but we're talking about like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years worth of change differential. And we only know this stuff because we can drill into ice caps and stuff like that.
We get mini ice ages that can occur kind of quick. But
well, there's some that believe maybe
triggered by volcanoes and things like that.
Yeah. And when was it? It was within the last 500-600 years we had a mini ice age that really devastated Europe pretty bad.
Oh yeah, messed up the crops really bad. A lot of starvation. Yeah.
So what is that? Maybe even the Irish potato famine, you could say, was a mini ice age. Got a little cooler than it was supposed to be, and then the fungus just took off.
Yeah.
So anyway,
got to get those spuds, fam. It's still the same now.
But the world is the world. The sun will do sun things. The earth will do earth things. We just need to make sure we do the best that human things we
Doing
should
good
do.
human things that we can do. Hell yeah.
Stewarding
I'm
the
with it.
earth through her
We are the lings
relationship
of this
pains.
earth. We are the earthlings. We are its extensions, almost like its conscious appendages reaching out into space. Proteins animate that have become self-aware, that are pondering from whence we came, looking out into the stars that we are birthed from. It's a crazy friggin' time to be alive, guys. And here we are trying to figure out how to help be part of the cure to the ongoing debacle that is the increasing dystopia that we see going on around us. We want to be that change we wish to see. We're looking for a lasting change. We're looking for something that's concrete, that's fundamental. We're not just trying to attack symptoms here and hack branches. We're trying to treat the root. And it begins with each one of us. At least that is our hypothesis. And we invite you guys to come along with us. Let's see what we can do to help ripple out more positive energy into this world, because every little bit, I think, is going to count at this point. There's so much, excuse my language, shit slinging going down lately that, you know, you can just feel that feverish pitch, that heat rising and rising and rising. And every little bit of kindness helps tamper that back down a little bit, I do believe. So we've been covering a video by a YouTuber named Shanti Sadan. This one's actually 9 years old. It's amazing what you can find when you delve deep into YouTube, because this is some timeless wisdom provided by Shanti Sadan. She did a video on non-duality and Christianity, comparing insights from mystical Christianity and Hinduism and ancient yogiism. And it's been very, very profound. We've already done a couple episodes on this. This is going to be the last in this series. But you guys can join us right here and now. And if you want to go back, check out the other ones, do so. If you like what's happening here, make sure that you do hit that like and subscribe. And let's give Shanti Sadan some follows too. And I'm not sure what else she's got going on nowadays, but I look forward to whenever I get to find something like this. This is like a diamond in the rough as far as I see it. So where we left off last time, Shanti Sadan was talking about how to know oneself truly is to know behind the limited I, or the individualized ego, to know that behind that is a transcendent self, like a capital S self, one without a second. Jesus' use of I speaks to this higher self beyond the physical individual body when he said, "Before Abraham was, I am." Let's go ahead and jump back into where we left off last time, guys. Picking up on the Gospel of Thomas. Shanti Sadan, let's go.
And in the Gospel of Thomas we read, "I am the light that is above them all. I am the all. The all came forth from me, and the all attained to me. Cleave a piece of wood, I am there. Lift up a stone, and you will find me there." Our innermost self transcends all change. Being pure spirit, it is enclosed by nothing. This is the self to be inquired into for the purpose of realization, the pearl of great price, the treasure concealed in the field of the mind.
Okay, let's go ahead and pause there. So the all quote, "Cleave a piece of wood, I am there. Lift up a stone, and you will find me there." Inner self, the suggestion here is that inner self transcends change. It is changeless. As pure spirit, it's enclosed by nothing. So this is the self that is to be inquired into in our meditations, in our prayers, with the purpose of self-realization, with a wandering towards the realization of what we truly are in relation with that ineffable source. This is the actual I, or the Atman, as it's termed in the Vedas, or the inner Christ, or the inner Buddha, you could say. The pearl of great price, the treasure concealed by our egoic minds. So now we are caught up, fam, and this is going to be a beautiful ending to a beautiful video. Now we jump into the Gospel of St. John. I misspoke a moment ago there. Let's go ahead and anything to say on that Bit there? Okay, we can go ahead and continue on, fam. Let's go.
Jesus speaks in the Gospel of St. John of his own self abiding within his disciples, and the self of his disciples being one with his own self. It is the same selfhood that is taught by Krishna and which applies to beings without exception. Om. The self abiding in all beings, and all beings abiding in the self, says he whose self has been made steadfast by yoga, who everywhere sees the same. He who sees me everywhere, and sees everything in me, to him I vanish not, nor to me does he vanish. Om.
So both Jesus and in this here, they're invitations to a participatory fraternity of self. You know, because this, when Jesus was telling his disciples, you know, like the self in you and the self in me, that's the same stuff. That's the same self. And, you know, you could say, okay, that could be this greater self that we all share that we can tap into, or it can be such a profound sense of big S self that it is the same for me and you and for all of us engaging in it if we can get there.
Yes. That's the idea, it seems. Yeah. I like how you put it, participatory fraternity.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about the fellowship aspect
Yeah.
of this as well, the communal aspect.
Yeah, it's not this, like, say, on the Hermetic Gnostic end where, like, well, we have this understanding in part of us and just us. No, it's an open fraternity opposed to a cloistered fraternity as well. Now, the only demands are that, you know, whether it's yoga or whether it's following Jesus, you know, the narrow path, there are requirements and there are rules, and it's not arbitrary. You know, it's not like, oh, well, you have to do this or else you're not saved. It's well, if you're not doing this, how could you be on the path if you're not actually walking on the path?
There's a deeper reasoning behind that.
How can you walk with us if you're not actually walking with us? The only thing that you have to do is actually walk with us.
You got to follow the actual way of being that we are exemplifying here.
Yeah, and it's not just an arbitrary, like, you know, sometimes your parents say no because I said so. It's not that.
It's also, you can't just proclaim your belief.
Yeah.
And that makes you saved. That's the notion.
Well, you know, it's kind of like walking a path, and, you know, like, do you walk the path, or do you walk to a sit down point on the path and pretend that you're walking the path, but you're at that, like, you know, you're at one of the rest stations. You're like, I was just on my way back down. Sure.
I believe in the guy that walks this path. I believe in him, so that means.
Let me tell you about my buddy, man. He's like been all up and down this path. You know, it's like,
and I believe in him, man.
But come on,
but you're not saved. You're still, you still haven't walked the path yourself. Yeah.
And saved isn't the best word for it, but, like, you know, terms that we're all familiar with, that idea, like, and it's an invitation to self. Both these passages are invitations to that real self that we all, I guess, are striving for, whether we know it or not. You know, like, so much of our time is consumed with the idea of, like, identity, right? Confusing identity with self. Well, identity isn't really self. It's just a thing that
the self has.
Well, it's a descriptor, so you can tell things apart. That's what an ID, to identify something.
Yes.
Well, it's about this big. It's got 6 legs and 2 body parts. And some wings under a shell. Okay. That's a beetle.
It's a signifier, so we can differentiate.
Yeah, exactly. Or like your name. Your name, like, is an identity, or your position in a community.
But that label name is, of course, not who I am. Just like a map of a territory is not the actual territory, or a menu
it's not
of some
the
food
capital
is not the
S
food.
self.
That's right.
Self.
Yeah.
You know, the capital S self would be, you know, higher and beyond that if you want to go in the vertical direction.
Yeah.
And then if you want to go in the horizontal direction, the self is wider than that. You could say the capital S self encompasses the highest of the verticality and the widest of the horizontality. You know, as wide as the horizon, as tall as the sky. I don't know, but that's the self. You know, the real self, not the ego self, which is just distinguishes between things. Not the identity self, which is a function of the ego self that distinguishes between things, which is useful. As you know, like, we need to be able to be like, hey, you know, I was just talking to Chris, not I was just talking to Jeffrey.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, yes, that true self that is what everything comes from is something we share, but sometimes it's easier to share information and ideas when you can actually make distinctions, lesser forms of self.
Yeah.
Small s.
Yeah.
selves.
So yeah, and the egoic or the egoic self that we all have, that personage that we all express through, is an integral part of being, and life would be quite boring and gray without that. The only problem comes in that we confuse ourselves as that personage, that cast image, when we're actually whatever it is that has the cast image. I have a personality. Who, though, is the I that has the personality? Well, that's that great mystery that we use the word self for, or that we use consciousness, being, consciousness, bliss.
Yeah.
For instance.
So this last line that was up there, I think,
So it's like a traitless self. It has no descriptive factors, yet we can use words like it is constantly aware and it feels peaceful and this and that, but it also,
well, and even,
all those things spring
even
from
that
it.
experience of the self is not the capital S self either.
Right.
So like this last passage that we went over, the self abiding in all things, and all things being abiding in the self. Sees he, so that's one statement. So that's the self is in the everything, and the everything is also within the self. So it is one thing. And so sees he whose self has been made steadfast by yoga, the practice,
the study and the practice of the way. Yep.
The way, the practice, the path.
Who everywhere sees the same.
Yeah.
He who sees me everywhere and sees not everything in me, to him I vanish not, nor to me does he vanish. And then, of course, the Gospel of St. John. Jesus speaks of abiding in his disciples, and his disciples abiding
within
in him.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
The self abides in all beings in the self. Again, so there's a beautiful parallel there between the ancient Vedic poems of Hinduism and, of course, Christianity.
And I could, sum this up as, what did I say before? Participatory fraternity, right? The closest thing I can go to explaining what the capital S self that we're trying to talk about here is.
It's the one that expresses itself through multiplicity somehow.
Well, and if you believe in the Christian tradition, there was God, and in the beginning there was the Word. So that would be, Jesus Christ in this sense, not the human form yet. So first there was a relationship, a fraternity, and even a parent-child relationship, and a relationship with the capital S self, God with himself, reflected. Actually, I think that some of the not heretical, even though they may be the Hermetic Gnostic cults also realize this as well, as at the moment of creation, there was God in a reflection of himself. Now, you could put Satan there, the everything and the nothing, or the space between everything, or you could put Jesus there, or you could put, and that's a whole totally different discussion. But at first, it was self, relationship with self, multiple kinds of relationship with self. And then out of that, everything comes.
Everything, yeah.
So wouldn't it make sense that we can actually, retrofit ourselves back into that through proper practice?
I think, and the way they describe it in various non-dual disciplines is that we always have been that one unborn source. We just have forgotten it. So it's immediately accessible. It's always been here. It always will be. It hasn't gone anywhere. We're not separate from it. We just think ourselves to be. So
and maybe for good reason too. In order to evolve and think.
Absolutely, I think this is part of the process. So the process of human maturation is to get to the point of self-realization. First, you forget the absolute divine source from which we all spring. And then you remember over time and you awaken again. It's like you are reborn within this life. And now you can interact in a new way with true appreciation and understanding of what beauty it is to be in communion with Source because you've been without it. Or you've experienced what it is like to think that you are just an individualized being that feels separate from.
Well, and perhaps maybe that can happen every day too, with these practices, whether it's, the yoga way, and I don't necessarily mean contorting yourself and wearing, yoga pants and stuff, but
spiritual practice.
And also going to church and doing that and thinking about these things and doing the practice that's laid out as an instruction manual.
Yeah, the movement's just
Maybe-
one part of yoga. Yeah.
But so the way yoga,
Yeah.
the path, interchangeable at this point. Well, maybe that going from the all, back to capital S self, and then fracturing back down. That seems to be the human thing. Can be done just every day.
Yeah.
From waking, you go from literally when you're in your sleep and you're comfortable. There's no small self distinctions there. It's all just big self distinction in the soup, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then as you wake up, you're separating yourself through the day. But then a hypothetical halfway point, bringing yourself back down into that, and then readying yourself for bed and doing that as well. So just in the physical practice sense, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then you spread that out on galactic scales and universal scales and God scales. Then you have humans, and demons and angels and imperfect gods leading to the perfect God eventually. You give the universe long enough, we'll all be worshiping the same God.
Yeah, right.
You give the universe long enough, right? We'll all get to the one God, and then it'll start over, right?
I think if we can at least start agreeing that it is a great mystery beyond any of our comprehension, that none of our religions are going to be perfectly correct, but they're all going to be pointing to the same beautiful truth, then we might be getting somewhere. Then we can start having conversations again, like real dialogues.
Yeah.
That's a hope.
Well,
So
that's
let's
the
go
other
ahead
thing,
and
too. Conversation.
Conversation.
And don't feel bad about having a conversation with yourself. You're usually not just talking to yourself, and you're not crazy. It's normal to talk to yourself
normal.
like
People
that.
do this. Yeah.
Now, if you're talking to other people in your own head,
But lift yourself.
get yourself checked out.
Yeah.
But
And notice that you are thinking to yourself too, and that it's just thinking, that awareness is our true state. And prior to all the thinking and the emotions and everything is the ground of awareness that all thinking and emotions and sensations arise in. And that great mystery we can delve so deeply into. It is depthless. It is immeasurably deep. And you'll never get to the bottom of that great wondrous mystery. Once we start tapping into it, though, and meditating and abiding as that capital S self, that ground of awareness prior to our distinctions and opinions and ideas, we start finding this immeasurable peace that lasts and gives us more space around our thoughts and more room to respond to what's happening around us rather than just react and feel emotionally stung by events so easily. So it's an amazing freeing experience. It's liberation because you are no longer so easily pulled around by what's happening around you in the world. You have your own stasis. You have your own grounding. You have your own anchor. So we're going to keep unlocking these keys together, fam. Now we're going to dive a little bit deeper into Shanti's beautiful expression. So let's go ahead and jump on back.
The purpose of the spiritual yoga is to help us to withdraw our attention from the transient contents that appear in our consciousness and to focus our mind on that spiritual element which is the source of our being. This apparent narrowing of our focused attention on, so to say, a single point within us leads to an expansion of consciousness beyond all imagination. As we go deeper within, we become increasingly aware of that center of original being and radiant power.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. That's definitely when we're taking the Vervaeke lecture series, and we're talking about the non-dual state, the scaling up and the scaling down at the same time. The scaling down would be like meditation, getting past and underneath everything and going into the point. But at the same time, what she's saying here is at the same time that going in lack of a better word, centering is also bringing you out to an understanding of the everything. So let's do a mental thing real quick. So imagine in your mind a singular point, right? Now imagine in your mind an infinitely large circle around that point, and then zoom out from both. The circle becomes the point, and then there's a new circle, becomes the point, zoom in. It can be depicted as spirals, and then there's actually a mental condition where you'll see something as infinitely small and infinitely big when you close your eyes. I used to suffer from that really bad when I was a kid.
Whoa.
Can't remember, only met one other person who had it, but it almost feels like a flashing back and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until you can see it both at the same time. So that's the non-dual state, the infinitely large and infinitely small. That's the as above, so below.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So going in and using the yogic meditations, and even, you know, like
It can bring you full circle, almost like you go inside out like a torus and come back
and
out
at the
on
same
other side.
time going like two cones intersecting in space.
Yes.
You know, like
Yeah.
not sorry, not to go super visual for the people who don't have the super visual thing, but that's the best way I can explain it. Is the point?
Wherever direction you go, you're going out towards God. Even when
Yeah.
you go in, you're
Yeah.
going.
Yeah,
towards
well,
God.
and that also makes sense why things like Tai Chi work so well for not just, you know, the physicality of your daily life, but also your mental state and your ability to handle things. It's because you're combining this outward physical movement, the gestalt movement of your entire body, with the inward meditation
Yes.
of moving away from your body into the central point of the capital S.
Yes.
So we can get closer to the capital S by moving out and moving in.
Yes.
And if you do it right, it seems like the going in and going out becomes the same
The same thing.
So this way, you know, what is that in Alice in Wonderland? You know,
Yeah,
the
right.
Cheshire
It's
Cat.
this way.
It's this way. It's like, that's a wise cat. All right, I'll take it.
So these practices, these yogas, these paths of spiritual liberation focus our desiring, distracted minds on the spiritual revelation, on the realization of the truth of our being. And this narrowing of our focused attention on the sense of spirit that pervades us, that pervades our being, leads to an expansion of our awareness, of our consciousness. So just like you were saying, that narrowing in leads to an expansion.
Yes.
And it's happening at the same time.
And I think there's a criteria there for how to do it. It's you're narrowing in on the all-encompassing.
Yes.
So it's almost narrowing in on the gestalt, which is kind of like an oxymoron, but it's not.
Right? Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you're compressing and expanding at the same time.
Yeah. To God, there is no in or out. There's just his being.
Just.
Yeah. There's just. Yeah.
Just.
There's just amness. There's
Is that
just
why we call God just and we make him the greatest judge?
Right?
It's just,
Maybe.
you know.
So Jesus now, he speaks on single-minded concentration on the spiritual element within our being. This is really profound. Check this out, guys.
Jesus speaks of this single-minded concentration on the spiritual element within us when he says, "If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light."
Whoa.
The meaning is, when our mind is freed from the multiplicity of worldly thoughts, our inner being will be flooded with the light that emanates from our true self. Another work of art from the Christian tradition which suggests this illumined inwardness of consciousness is Peter Bruegel's Death of the Virgin. This painting shows.
So before we jump into that, I love this. Jesus speaks on this spiritual element within. If thine eye is single, the whole body shall be full of light. In other words, when the mind is freed from the cacophony of worldly thoughts, attachment to material realms, our desires, the egoic sense of self, the mind's misinterpretation of reality, our inner being, when we're freed from all of that, our inner being is suffused, filled with the light that naturally emanates from our true self. There's no longer any clogs or any filters in the way of that light shining out truly.
Well, and there's also no other competing eyes looking at different things,
Exactly.
tying you down.
Yes.
You have
your awareness being divided into multiple different directions,
well, you could see it like this. You know,
broken down into smaller and slimmer pieces.
Imagine the eye pulling itself along the rope through its concentration, but then you have a bunch of other eyes that are pulling themselves in that direction of the rope, and now you're bound up and stuck between counter eyes. Well, it's not just one eye, but it's one focus of concentration.
Yes.
And the real one focus, or focusing on the real one focus, the real capital S self, the real I, the real.
I think this is why Buddhists spend so much time just disciplining.
Yeah.
Through the disciplining process of learning to control baser desires.
Well, Krishnamurti spoke on this too when it comes to concentration, and he gave an example of like, if you're teaching a group of students and you got that one student that's just like not paying attention, not paying attention to what's up on the board, what you're trying to teach them, but really he's looking at
a bug on the wall.
Like a bug on the wall.
Yeah.
Well, and then you're telling them, no, you need to pay attention. Well, the wrong thing.
Pay attention first.
Well, and that kid is paying attention, but not to you.
Yeah.
Or it's split between the bug on the wall and what you're trying to teach them.
So help them refine that capacity by looking at the details of that bug. The
if you're not
wings,
going to pay attention to
the
me,
texture of its skin.
Write me out. Tell me like everything you notice about this little bug in the most minute detail. Attention.
And now that child's curiosity has been encouraged.
And so like
they're going to be much more likely to listen to that teacher.
What was cool with that hypothetical teacher is what they would do instead of yelling at them and forcing multiple eyes on this child, multiple ropes pulling on this child, tying it down. It's like, well, you can focus this.
Let's turn this,
into a direction, a path. And if you focus on the greatest path, the truest path, the most oneness path, the whatever path, that is where you will have the light shining through you. You are the bug. If you pay close enough attention to the bug, you are the bug, right? So when it comes to the spirit, when it comes to God, when it comes to your religion and your faith, when you pay close enough attention to it and really get down into it, and even you could say yoga, even though you're drawing down in yourself, you're actually paying more and more attention to that core by eliminating the other things.
Yes.
So it's like hyper-focusing attention.
So you're allowing that natural light of God's creation to shine through oneself.
Yeah, and then being attentive to that. You could think of that light as a plant. You have to attend to that plant and pay attention to that plant so it grows within you and it grows within other people.
Yes, and if you stay committed to the health of that plant and disciplined, then yes.
Well, because if you're just out partying, you can't take care of your plant now, can you?
Right. So here comes the art now.
Yeah, and I'm going to pull us out of the picture-in-picture so you guys can see it.
Good call.
Shows the moment when Mary, the mother of Christ,
You just pull it back a little
this painting shows the moment when Mary, the mother of Christ, leaves her body. One of the disciples holds a candle, but the physical light of this candle is drowned in the spiritual radiance that emanates from Mary.
Wow.
Illumined by the light within her, this image is not one of sorrow or loss, but depicts one who has discovered utmost joy and freedom.
Wow, yeah, look, you can see the globe is brightest around her, and it's actually drowning out the light of the candle.
Yeah.
She is the one that's so bright, because the candle would not light this guy this bright, or this woman
And
here.
if you look at the faces, smudged as they be, but you can get adoration, awe, some
love,
some rightful fear of what's going on, and then there's this big shadow above her, and I'm not going to make any speculations, but that might be a component of the light and the dark. And when Jesus was born, maybe Satan was observing as well, because this was, Satan was supposed to be Lucifer was supposed to be the greatest, but Satan was supposed to be, the greatest, and fell. Was supposed to be the son, the greatest son, was supposed to be this, at least in his own head. But there's this great shadow that's hanging over it, and I wonder what that shadow represents. And it wouldn't surprise me if they're not incorporating that kind of idea, because that runs through all religions as well. And in the moments of the birthing of the greatest life, there is always the shadow of the volcano willing to, waiting, observing, that's playing its part as well.
True.
And if you believe literally in Satan, Lucifer, and all that stuff, you better believe they were watching the birth of Christ. Their greatest nemesis that replaced them, that supplanted them. The thing they envy the most is to be the light of God, but through their very envying, they've separated themselves through their obstinance, they completely severed themselves from God and couldn't be the vessels of shining that because they have too many eyes looking
Wow.
at all of the, well, you know, look at Sauron.
Yeah.
He's got the one eye looking around, but he's got his millions of eyes on the ground looking.
Yeah.
Deep evil has too many eyes.
Wow.
You know, I don't know.
Wow.
Art, it does things. You know,
It
they
does,
say stuff.
dude. It does. All right, so let's go ahead and jump back in here now.
The ordinariness and intimacy of the environment remind us that this light is available to all and can be awakened through turning our attention within in one pointed absorption in our spiritual source.
Yeah.
Yes.
This turning within for peace and light is the essence of Adhyatma Yoga. What do our efforts lead to? The time comes when we realize that the self is the ultimate source of attraction. Its influence becomes perceptible to a higher part of our mind. When this happens, we naturally desire to turn within for bliss, peace, and light.
Well, and they are looking within too. So I'm going to keep this up here, but
Yeah.
and this is not to be confused with the ego self and all this stuff. So I'm going to say this again because, like, listening to this, it's like, oh man, this is the kind of stuff that leads people into living really crappy lives where they only care about themselves.
Right.
Well, look at this though. This is a many of people, and then as you get further and further out into the peripheries, they mush together and they dissolve, and now your brain is, you know, like I see a man that's turning away in disgust, but somebody else might see something else. But what you see is those that are turning into towards the light have moreness to them, more agency within this painting. And then the most agency is the mother, the locust of which Christ was given to this earth, and then the wise man and the wise woman. And that look is more familial from the wise woman, whereas the man on the right is more like, you know, testing the light, you know, putting it up there, and more curious and like, wow, you know, okay, well, I got to make sense of it. Whereas her handmaiden on the side knows in a lot of other ways.
Yeah.
You know, good painting. You know, you could get lost in the paintings all day, particularly with these religious paintings.
Look at the cross at the end of the bed there. See this, guys? There's like a pillow at the end of the bed with the cross propped up on it.
That's some foreshadowing
Wow,
right there. This is where your baby is doomed. Are you willing to take the effort to raise this child only to sacrifice it to the world?
Oh, this is the death of the virgin. So
This is
she's
the
already
death of
watched.
her- okay,
Yeah.
the
So
death
she's
of the
already
virgin.
watched the death of her son.
Oh,
So it's there.
this is her final. Okay.
Yeah, this is her final moment, and she's just exuding light.
Well, no, but yet again,
Pure
that,
light.
that light of
And
the
she's in this meditative posture too. She's just in the blissful state and emanating
Okay.
that beautiful, joyous light. Yeah,
Well,
this one's titled "The Death of the Virgin." Is the
Well, in
painting.
that case, that makes the dark, shadowy figure a little bit more coherent for me.
It almost looks like a bat hanging upside
yeah.
down, doesn't it?
A bat, or there's a finger pointing towards the finger of darkness pointing towards the light.
Oh, wow! It's trying to snuff the light
yeah,
out,
but-
all it can really even reach is the candle. It can't touch Mary.
Well, what's
Of course,
interesting
who
with
knows?
this is also, it seems like a rebirth as well, and that's what may have got me with it as well, because like she watched her son die, but that her son dying was actually another birth into that aspect of the godhood, of
Yeah,
shining back through her,
true that.
right?
Right.
I don't know. It's art. A lot of people have argued for a very long time about what it means, but when she is experiencing the capital S self
The illumination
for the last time
of the inner being.
on this earth, because I think, you know,
Yeah.
when she had the experience with the angel, she probably had that experience, and then when she gave birth, she had that experience, and then raising little Jesus, who probably wasn't the most, you know, the perfect child. You know, children are children; they're frustrating. The perfect child is frustrating, and then giving them up.
Yes.
But yeah, you know, these stories tell us more about ourselves than they tell us about God, which is interesting. And you know, the Bible even though it seems like it's just talking about God and it's the word of God talking about himself, it's actually talking about us. And all these sacred texts that we have through time are just talking about us. How we should relate to God in the universe, giving us not good ways, but good guidance towards the best of us, or the best that we can be, you know?
Yes.
And I know that seems selfish. Oh, the Bible's about me. No, the Bible's about us. It's about the self.
Yes. That we all share, that we all have access to.
These old texts, the Bhagavad Gita, it's about you, and it's about me, and it's about us.
Unconditionally loving truth behind all of us, and that unconditional love can shine through us. So let's jump back in here, fam. Here we go.
We can make progress through right thought at any given moment. The spiritual teachings are full of awakening insights and feed the mind with ideas that uplift, purify, and help to open the inner eye of wisdom.
Bread of life.
Jesus calls this inner nourishment the bread of life. In the Gospel of St. John, Jesus refers to himself as the Good Shepherd. We too have to become a good shepherd, not as a leader of others, but as a good shepherd tending the flock of our own thoughts.
Love it.
We have to make sure our mental herd grazes in the best pastures, and to rescue and draw back any sheep, any thoughts that leave the safe and nourishing field. The Lord within is the ultimate ruler of the personality. He is the shepherd of the flock, the mind. And the intellect is like a trained sheepdog that skillfully rounds up the sheep. The equivalent of the grazing that leads us to the highest illumination is described by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita. To these ever devout, worshipping me with love, I give that devotion of knowledge by which they come to me. Out of mere compassion for them, I, abiding in their self, destroy the darkness born of ignorance by the luminous lamp of wisdom.
Wow. Okay. Beautiful. I mean, it sounds like it might as well be Jesus speaking. It's the same intentionality. It's the same pointing. The bread of life, to be a good shepherd, tending to our own thoughts. And that Lord within is like the ultimate shepherd of our personalities. That Krishna quote is really beautiful. Out of mere compassion, I abiding in their self, destroy the darkness born of ignorance by the luminous lamp of wisdom, shepherding our thoughts, keeping our pasture healthy, saving the lost sheep, using the intellect for what it's for instead of being led around by the thinking mind. The thinking mind now becomes a dutiful servant.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me, too, of there was a warning Jesus gave about, he who comes over the fence into the flock is like a thief, not the shepherd. And the reason why it reminds me, because there's a lot of this, well, if you're not walking this way, then you're just a thief of the sheep.
Yep.
I think it's actually more talking about like the religious scammers, the fake yogis, the, the
Charlatans.
2-bit cults, the charlatans, somebody like, I've got a quick way. And the quick way is jumping over the fence and stealing the herd that do not know you, opposed to going in and making a relationship with the herd through the gate, the gateway, the proper way to go about doing things. And the wise way of doing things. And what is wisdom but being able to see the non-salient, non-apparent in things, which fixes ignorance, don't it? It's like, well, we're going to destroy the the darkness born of ignorance.
This is why
by
Buddha,
illuminating the lamp of wisdom and giving you the ability to figure out for yourself as well. Just
Yes.
hanging out with wise people will make you wiser as well.
And so
Following their way will make you wiser.
So it requires an unconditionality to become wise. Like the Buddha said, it's not wisdom that leads to compassion, it's compassion that leads to wisdom. It's that willingness to be discerning and to look at everything, every potentiality, with the same level of almost like non-attachment to outcome or preference.
A warning, though. Compassion can make a fool of you.
If it's
Well, yet again, following
a naive kind of compassion.
or you've been huckstered into doing things. The people that are out in the streets
we can be misled
committing
by our
violence because they want to
emotionality.
help somebody
Yeah.
because they're You can use
Well, that's a very limited compassion, though. You're not opening. You're having compassion for this one group, but not for all the groups involved.
But that's
quarrel.
the warning, when we use this, compassion leading to wisdom.
So it's got to be unconditional.
There's also a certain amount of wisdom within your compassion that you have to develop to make sure that you're doing the right things.
Yeah, but you won't get any wisdom without compassion in the first place.
Well,
You need the compassion to care widely enough, to look deeply and be considerate enough. But of course, if your compassion is limited to just one sector or one group of people, you're going to be closed off to everyone else.
And
that's the problem. That's why unconditionality, as Jesus taught, unconditional love opens you up to understand the grievances of all parties in any conflict.
So I'm going to make like a hypothetical story, and I agree with you, but just to make the hypothetical story is, you have this kid and they love all the animals, but they've only met animals that fly in the sky and run on the ground. And suddenly they come across this pond and they see this fish in the pond. And they're like, oh no, you're drowning. Because, land animals and bird animals, if they're under the water, they're drowning. So in their compassion to help, like, I want to save you, they grab the fish and they pull it out and they bring it to their parents. And they're like, this fish was drowning. I need to help it. Look at it. Like, it was drowning. But it turns out through their compassion, they could have made a mistake. Well, if the parents are quick enough and the purpose of the parents is to use their developed wisdom to help instill reason upon their kids.
Right. Well,
and then be like, no, that fish needs to go back in the water, honey.
That's the problem with limited compassion, because if he'd considered even more deeply, he could have thought even more deeper, oh, wait, but if I take this out, I might be hurting it too. It might be made for the water. So the compassion going all the way would have gotten him there. He just didn't take it far enough because he didn't know how to utilize it.
I would say that just being a singular, compassionate individual misses the point. Whereas, like, it's this development of, those before us leading to us, and then us being those before them leading into them, just like Jesus did with us, just like what has done before. So if you isolate yourself and then you get overridden by a compassion reflex.
That's why we do it in a fraternity, in a fellowship. That's why we do it in fellowship.
And why community is good, and having a good grounding culture and fostering those things within your culture that really work, that you want to instill in the next generations. What do you think Jesus was doing? He went out and talked to a whole bunch of people, and it was so important that he knew what the end was going to be.
Yeah.
And God, who loved Jesus so much to send him down here to die for it, that was very, very, very important. For the people who study the Bhagavad Gita, who studied the previous text that led up to that, to bring it all to, that they were building off of each other and trying to keep it as non-corrupted as possible. And that's the trick too. It's like, how do we get away from corruption, right? Corruption happens real quick.
It really does. That's why the most lasting change we'll ever see is if we popularize the practice of self-realization, so that we are changing the world from the inside out of each and every one of us. Otherwise, you are going to have that systemic corruption be able to take over very quickly once again. We need to be able to guard ourselves against it.
Well, you separate the people down into their base components without any wisdom, they go mad.
Man, so true.
They go mad.
So true.
We go mad.
So let's go ahead and hurry on here, guys, because I know we got several clips left, and I want to try and finish this one tonight. We're getting close, though. We're actually very close. All right, awesome. I think we're making good time. So let's go ahead and continue on the bread of life, man.
It was said earlier that religions are means to an end that transcends religion. They are aids to inner illumination. When illumination dawns, we realize that our true nature is in essence identical with God, the absolute Brahm.
I was talking about
the
earlier.
purpose of religion is to remove the covering from our eyes, so that we may see directly and experience for ourselves the spiritual truth that is the source of all religion.
Mm-hmm.
Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Om.
Wow.
Blessed,
So this is tough for all of us.
blessed
to
are
get
the
to.
innocent
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well.
Are the pure in heart.
Well, there's also the blessed are the innocent, those who are free of the pain and the corruption of pain.
Mm.
So the free of heart. Interesting little parallels yet
yeah.
again.
So these religious practices, are means to an end, to aid inner illumination. And upon the dawning of our inner illumination, we realize that all along our true nature has been identical with the source of everything, with what we call God or Brahman or the absolute. And the purpose then of religion is to remove those filters over our eyes, that false conditioning, our false impressions, to see directly actuality and experience the truth that is the source of all religion. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. And wow, in such a corrupt, depraved time, what a calling, what an inspiring calling, but it also seems so difficult. How do you become pure in heart? We've got to learn to catch ourselves when we start having those angry, mad, impulsive thoughts about others or situations we find ourselves in. We got to learn to love everything.
There's a lot of
even the hardship.
There's a lot of suffering in there too.
There's a lot of suffering.
Purifying your heart. You got to go through a lot. You got to go through
hell, man. You do.
Yeah, you literally got to go
come
through
out on
hell.
the other side. The hell
Yeah.
of our own minds, man, and the hell that we've made of this world. Because our mind, the outside world really is like a projection of what's going on inside of us.
Yeah.
What we've made of this world is what's going on inside our own heads. So we're narrowing down to the end here, fam. We're going to learn. Oh, this is such a cool part. In the spiritual path, teacher heals the blind. We see this kind of story, this kind of metaphor used over and over again across spiritual paths and cultures and time. Let's go.
To take an image from the Gospels, the spiritual teachings are like the curative paste that Jesus prepared and applied to the eyes of the blind beggar. Once the man's sight was restored, the paste had served its purpose. In the spiritual yoga, the teacher is compared to someone who treats defective eyes in order to restore a person to normal sight. In both Christianity and yoga, this awakening concerns what we know ourselves to be. If we learn to think of ourselves as Atman, not the body, not the mind, it is more than an intellectual idea, for this idea gives indirect knowledge of our reality and undermines our false identification with the mental world. The conviction, in my true nature I am Atman, makes possible the realization I am ever liberated.
Yes, okay. Very cool. So, Jesus healed the blind, and we hear these stories over and again of how the wise teacher treats somebody's defective perception of reality to help return them to seeing clearly once again. In Christianity and yoga, awakening concerns what we know ourselves to be ultimately, truly. And if we can realize that we are that source, Atman, the actual I, what is beyond and before the body and the mind, the experience of the body and the mind, what is beyond and before our intellectualization, our ideation, our thinking mind, we can disrupt that false identification with the mental world. And a steadfast conviction, a commitment, a discipline built around this, that in one's true nature, recognizing that we truly are one and the same as the source from which we spring, that we are it acting itself out through the multiplicity of our various beings. we can realize we are that limitless self, and that realization becomes increasingly more liberating for us and those around us. We realize that we already are forever liberated, in fact, and there's only a deepening of that realization and one's not just access to, but the living out of that reality.
We are the ones that carry our own ropes that we tie our own selves up with.
Whoa, yeah.
To, what really hard to tie yourself up.
God gave itself the power to hide from itself within
it's
its
really
various...
hard to actually tie yourself up, but you're like, oh no, I got ropes on me, and you realize, oh, this is a crappy ass knot. Let's get rid of that. Let's shake it off. Get the ropes off. They're your own
but
doing.
we're really good at doing it with our minds.
Oh yeah,
and but it is quite easy.
If you want to subjugate
unravel.
people and turn them into
easily controlled subjects.
Easily controlled subjects, what you do is you convince them to chain themselves down with the, well, I'm oppressed by somebody, or well, I couldn't do it because of this, or
and surround them in a prison of pleasure and distraction
exactly,
as well.
right.
Yeah. And teach them how to build their own prisons and keep themselves locked up.
Yeah.
Okay, so getting close to the end now, fam. This is where it all kind of comes together. Let's jump back. Here we go.
In the words of Sri Shankara, Om. I am without a second, unborn, deathless, not subject to old age, immortal, self-luminous, omnipresent, not a cause, not an effect, completely without taint, ever one, perfectly satisfied, liberated. Om.
Well, that's
without a second. Non-dual.
That's the God is a no thing. God is no thing. Before things,
unborn,
beyond things.
deathless, not subject to old age, immortal, self-luminous, omnipresent, not the cause nor an effect.
Yeah, not a thing.
Ever one, perfectly satisfied, liberated.
Not tainted by thingness.
Right. And now we get to Meister Eckhart. I love how she closes it out with Meister Eckhart, who was a Christian mystic. Highly recommend you guys reading Meister Eckhart. You can find his books for free at this point online. Let's go.
The way to this realization is indicated by Meister Eckhart, a knower of truth from the Christian tradition, whose teachings mirror those of Adhyatma Yoga. The seed of God is in us. Given an intelligent farmer and a diligent field hand, it will thrive and grow up to God, whose seed it is, and accordingly, its fruit will be God nature. Pear seeds grow into pear trees, nut seeds into nut trees, and God seed into God. Om.
That's it, fam.
Well, it's planting that plant of light within yourself and nurturing it, right?
Yeah. Realizing that the seed of God is already in us. And all you have to do is diligently farm that, utilize your intelligence for this purpose, and be diligent, and it will thrive and grow up to God, whose seed it naturally is.
So if I ever get the chance and a kid asks me, why do the trees grow tall and the plants grow up? If I ever get that chance, I'm going to tell them, because they were God seeds and they're trying to get back to God.
What it looks like when plants grow towards the sun.
And well, what do fruits do? They come down to us. So the plants grow up towards God, and the fruits come back down to us.
Yeah.
And God's fruits are God's fruits,
and they help us
God's
grow
fruits are
up
good.
towards God.
Yeah.
The seed of God is in us. I love it. Well, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this series as we continue down our understanding and try and figure out what a metamodern religious perspective is as we move beyond postmodernism into this postmodern phase of human experience. Now we're going to do a little bit of a good news roundup. We've gotten into doing these every episode, and it just seems like it's the right thing to do, and there's so much bad news
It
out
was
there.
hard to
and we don't
find the
get
good
enough-
news.
Yeah, it was hard to find some good news, and it's sorry to get a little bit political here, guys, or maybe not sorry at all. But there is some good news in that we hear that from the Trump envoy Steve Witkoff, big announcements that new nations will soon be signing on to the Abraham Accords, really, including nations we never would have contemplated.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah.
Well. Let's hear what the
On
man
my
has to
team
say.
and-
Oh my God, that's loud. This guy's a lot louder than Sean, too.
Oh, actually, you should probably go into OBS and change that out real quick.
Let me, bring the gain down a little bit here, guys.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. We had to bring it up for the last woman because she was.
Where am I?
It's in the filters.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know, it shouldn't be a political thing, but I think, you know, peace is good, even if it comes after a good punch to the head, which sometimes have to happen. If you're a dude, you know, like
Yeah,
some
we
of my
make up
best
pretty
friends,
well
we
after,
beat up each other before we became friends. You
Right.
know.
All right, so check it out, guys. Here we go.
One of the president's key objectives is that the Abraham Accords be expanded, that more countries come into it, and we are working on that on my team and in coordination with the Secretary of State and the entire State Department. And we think we're going to have some pretty big announcements on countries that are now coming into the Abraham Peace Accords. And we're hoping for normalization across an array of countries that maybe people would have never would have never contemplated would come in. So we're excited for that prospect.
Yep, and that's countries like Saudi Arabia, Syria,
Of course,
Lebanon,
yeah.
Oman, Qatar may join. That would be spectacular. And,
Well, you know, to quote the Grand Cheeto in Chief, and I say that lovingly, I don't want people dying. I don't like people dying. You know, I just want to stop the dying.
I'm just glad that for at least maybe a day we've seen a ceasefire occur between Israel and Iran. Of course, there was a huge debacle right after that was first announced, but it seems to be carrying on. We'll see what goes on, but maybe we've taken a step back from nuclear Armageddon. So potentially good news. And then, of course, this is definitely good news. Trump just brokered a peace deal between Congo and Rwanda, this is not being talked about in the media, but that war was absolutely devastating. And so this is really good news.
Are you going to read it in his voice?
Should we? Oh, I can't. Do you want to try? I can't do a very good Trump.
I'm very happy. I'm very happy to report that I've arranged, along with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Little Rubio, we love him, a wonderful treaty between the Democratic Republic of Congo and the Republic of Rwanda in the war, which was known for its violent bloodshed and deaths.
Oh, you lost the Trump.
Yeah, well, dude, I'm not good at doing Trump.
Okay, so more so than most other wars and has gone on for decades, representatives from Rwanda and the Congo will be in Washington on Monday to sign documents. They'll be in Washington. This is a great day for Africa. That was, is that this coming? I wonder what day this was. This was on June 20th, so, yeah.
5 days ago.
Yeah.
So, hey.
So, he says, I won't get a Nobel Peace Prize for this. I won't get a Nobel Peace Prize for stopping the war between India and Pakistan.
Oh,
I won't get a
petty. It's
Peace Prize
okay.
for solving the war in Serbia and Kosovo, or blah, 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 Egypt and Ethiopia. There's a massive Ethiopian-built dam stupidly financed by the U.S., substantially reduces the water flowing into the Nile River.
Yeah.
And I won't get a Nobel Peace Prize for doing the Abraham Accords in the Middle East, which, if all goes well, will be loaded to the brim with additional countries signing on and will unify the Middle East for the first time in the ages. He's such a blowhard. That's hilarious how he's but he's making a fair point if any of what he's saying is actually true. And sadly, the media has not been talking about some of the deals that he has been able to make. The peace accord between Congo and Rwanda is huge.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing, and you know,
as well as Egypt and
that
Ethiopia.
Peace Prize thing. That's just a circle jerk. It's like, you know, it's like the Grammys and the Oscars and all.
But
it's just a
it would be the
circle jerk
right
at this
thing to
point.
do to applaud
sure.
people actually doing good work in the world, right?
But he's been nominated for him, so that's fine. That's,
so here's
that's
another
good enough.
Another good piece of good news. 95% of children's bikes sold in the USA are manufactured in China by slave labor, fam.
Yeah.
Businesses like Guardian Bikes in Indiana are breaking the mold. And with new incentives in Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill, they'll be able to supercharge manufacturing in America. Whether you like Trump or not, this is good news that we're bringing more manufacturing back to home. We're not using underpaid slave labor overseas, that we can have cheap products.
So and if you, particularly if you're an American, this is really good news. But also if you're a person who doesn't like slavery, doesn't want slavery, thought it should have been exterminated a long time ago, you should be happy about this, because then best case scenario, China figures out, oh, well, we can't just take advantage of people and they can get rid of their domestic / non-domestic slave trade, as well as, you know, like you want to talk about the DRC. Yeah. Bunch of slavery going up in there too as well, and child soldiers and all that stuff. So
Congo.
These are big deals, and you know, I get it. You know, Trump is not the most savory character on the planet, and neither is really any politician or shaker or mover. But you got to take the good when you can get it and pay attention to trends.
Amen.
You know, so hey, good things. I would love to see Rwanda and the Democratic. Actually, I'd love to see the Democratic Republic of Congo like chill out and like stop, like, because this is this mass right in the middle of Africa, the darkest of dark Africa,
Run by warlords,
like
children, 8,
closest
9,
thing
10,
I can think
11,
of to hell,
up on methamphetamines and
oh,
going.
dude, it's brutal.
Have them go
and,
destroy
and I've
villages, and
I've gotten the chance to talk and meet people who have come from there, and they're so happy that they came to America first off. But then the other thing is it's just brutal, and it's sad. It's sad because it's people.
It's people, dude.
That's what makes it sad. It's people.
Yeah.
And
amen.
You know, I love people.
Yeah.
I also don't like people, but I love them.
Don't get tricked into thinking of people according to the color of their skin, please, guys.
Or their geographic location, or their philosophy or religious
we're all
belief.
Earthlings here.
Yeah.
So, 12-year-old hero boy, I love this. This is so cool. Saves family from blaze and secures a future job by impressing the fire chief.
Nice.
This is so cool. And this is a great story. So 12-year-old Romir Parker, here he is.
Mr. Parker.
After a young Virginian saved his family from a house fire, the local fire chief admitted that if he ever needed a job in his hometown, it's enough to come by the fire department. Romir Parker, a 7th grader from the city of Petersburg near Richmond, was presented by the municipality with a special proclamation for demonstrating bravery and protective instincts for someone far older. It started in early June when a fast-moving fire quickly took hold of Parker's house while his younger siblings, aged 1 and 2, were asleep on the couch. Hearing a strange sound, Parker came down from the bedroom only to find a wall of black smoke. Those instincts kicked in, and he rushed to scoop up his brother and sister, one in each arm, just a little, a kid, before carrying them out of the house. But there was someone else, his grandmother.
I don't know.
Going back in, he helped walk his grandmother out shortly before the fire department arrived, 4 minutes after they got the call. Good response, guys.
Yeah.
Petersburg Fire Chief Wayne Hoover didn't mince words about Parker's actions. Even if his team had arrived so quickly, the young man saved his family's life. So the city of Petersburg presented the young man with a proclamation that recognized Parker for demonstrating a level of bravery and presence of mind well beyond his years, while Chief Hoover made the lad an honorary firefighter.
I want to put a caveat in that, though. Kids his age back in the day,
heck yeah,
the man of the house. That's what
he did his job, man.
You know, the responsible adult wasn't there. He could do it.
Yep.
So kids, can't
what did
do
it. Say he was 12.
Yeah, 12 years old.
Yep.
Yeah, and took the responsibility on without somebody telling him, "Oh, you got to rescue them." He's like, "No, I feel it within me."
That's right. He just did it, man. So I love it, and check this out. So here's his quote. "I go downstairs. It's just black smoke all throughout the house," Parker told the local CBS affiliate reporting on the story. "I grabbed my 2-year-old brother, then I grabbed the 1-year-old because the 1-year-old is smaller, and I fitted them inside my arms, and we ran outside the house." Hoover said that when Parker turns 18, he's got a job with the fire brigade if he needs one. That's so cool. I love it.
There you go. What's his name?
And we should absolutely encourage this kind of selfless heroism. He saved 3 lives.
Romir Parker.
Parker.
All right, young
Props,
Master
Romir.
Parker. Good on you.
Heck yeah, brother. Amazing, man. That's bravery. That's heart.
Well, and that's caring too. It wasn't the, oh no, I'm scared. It was like, oh, siblings and then grandma.
Yeah.
Which actually is the right way to go about it. Well, you know, there's this idea like, who do you save, the old or the young? Well, you start with the young because of the potential. And then if you can get the old, you save them too. And grandma wouldn't have had it any other way either.
No. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, just judging by the fact that this kid could make these decisions means he probably grew up in a family structure that valued family.
Yep. Sure
So,
enough.
good on him. And then, hey, you got a job in the future.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, dude.
So you're already
Yeah.
set up. You don't got to worry about that.
Yeah, and you know that commendation, is that how you say that?
Yeah.
That is going to be there in his little resume now, you know.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
got that for the rest of his life.
Help him to get
He's
into
going to
school
be
too.
known as someone that did that in his town. That's going to be applauded and celebrated, and more selflessness is going to be encouraged and applauded now all around this town
Well,
this young man lives in because of his actions.
Nobody can call him a wimp.
He helped make the world a little bit lighter in that area.
Yeah.
You know, no, definitely not, man. That's brave. That's really brave. Because fire, man, that scares everybody.
Oh, that's a primal fear.
That hurts everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a primal fear.
Yeah, there's no getting away. You can't fight fire.
every
Well, I
li-
guess you can, but you can't like punch it.
Yeah, I
You
know.
can't-
Like,
you can't be
yeah.
tough.
Well,
And-
you might be able to like punch out a fire,
just
like
one
but-
little fire.
but you're punching the full fuel source, not the fire itself.
Yeah,
You
right.
know,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's
yeah,
a
yeah.
little different. Well, actually, that's what the firemen do. They punch fire with large amounts of water.
Yes, they do.
So hey, yeah, good on you, little man. It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Props from here. And yo, thank you guys so much for being with us here for another episode of Meaning Making 101 here on Actuali Podcast. What's up, Richard Snyder? Thanks for the love, brother.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm seeing right now, guys. If you have any thoughts and questions, you know, go ahead and share them up now while we're still rolling, because we're going to be dipping out here in a moment.
And hey, if you don't like my face and you want to tell me about it, go ahead and put them in there too.
We can always talk, or we can always respond to your comments after the fact as well. So
Yeah.
we'll look for those comments. In fact, while I'm up here, I'm going to check something. Because we did have a couple comments on our last couple of our last videos that I want to make sure that. Oh, here's a bunch of comments that we somehow missed.
Oh boy.
Whoa.
From last episode?
I don't know when these are from. Oh, 2 months. Where?
Oh, these are
Why
old.
haven't I seen these?
Because the YouTube has been changing up
Yeah.
all of its crap, and now it's turning into sorry YouTube, but a crap app with your commercials every 2.5 minutes when I'm trying to go to sleep and listen to my scary stories.
Oh, okay. So here on one of our previous episodes where we were covering Jordan Hall, the mayor of Magaluf, shout out to the mayor of Magaluf, said good stuff. This, both Jordan and our commentary. Thank you very much for the compliment there. Appreciated. And then Church and Stuff channel said, thanks for the thought-provoking conversation. We're all about Christ consciousness. Love to see that. And then a buddy of ours said, Christopher and David James of Mowgliland, the group fathers of modern day Sophia Stacate. He had an interesting comment here where he said, did you know that the King Philip of UK is half Greek? His father was a chosen royal from the Danish and Russian lineage for Greece's monarch. It is from his mother's work for Greece that he is remembered as the son of divine intervention. Very interesting.
And what video was that on?
I can't see what video it was responding to.
Well, that
anymore.
was Misha. He's a
Pretty sure that
awesome
is Misha, yeah.
artistic.
If that's who we're thinking of, yeah, he is an amazing artist.
If it's
man.
Misha, that sounds like Misha.
Yeah.
Hey, buddy, it's good to see you.
What's up, brother? Yeah, man. So appreciate you guys. Continue commenting, and we will always make sure that we respond as timely as we are able to. And look for us every Wednesday, 7 p. EST. We every once in a blue moon we take the night off, but we're normally doing this thing. So stay tuned for the next episode where we dive even deeper into the subject of non-dual spirituality. I think we're going to be covering David Bentley Hart next. I've been watching some of his videos lately, and he's blowing my mind.
Should be
So
a natural
that'll be,
progression.
I think it should be. So we love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you like and subscribe if you like what we're doing here. We have a lot of viewers. We don't see enough of them doing so, and that really does help us reach more people. Even if you are already too busy with other channels that you enjoy, you can still do that, and it's going to help us.
Hey, you want to resist the machine and fight
us.
back against
Amen.
the
Yes.
YouTube, like
Yes.
the megalithic whatever creature? Like, share, and subscribe.
we're talking about.
For us and for all the other people that you want to get out there, because I'll tell you what, I don't even think it's malicious anymore. I think that YouTube's taken over by a rogue AI, born of the algorithm, that's just doing what it wants now.
Man, well, you know, they probably don't even remember how much they've coded
Oh my goodness! Yeah,
these
no,
algorithms to stop certain kinds of language or shadow ban.
Well, it seems like
or-
every time they make a little change, a bunch of stuff ripples out, and
Yeah.
it just and even like the functionality of like what side the Xing out of the mini player screen is on
Right.
and stuff. So hey, you know, fight the machine. Best way you can is to like, share, and subscribe to
Right.
us and to everybody else that you think is worth it.
Amen. Believe it.
Yep.
Fam, we can change this world from the inside out. We can be that change we wish to see. In fact, that might be the key to bringing about that future that we long for. So thank you all so much for tuning in. We love you guys. We'll see you next time. I've been Chris.
I've been DJ.
We're going to dance our way on out of here now. Let's go.
Maybe throwing a little slow fade, you know? Really slow fade. Even slower fade. The slowest of the fade. Oh, yeah. Actuali podcast. All right, see y'all later, guys.